As you know, our Archbishop is died, and it's his funeral tomorrow. On behalf of the Labour Party Friends of Cyprus, I would like to welcome everybody to our event this evening. We would like to extend a special warm welcome to our distinguished guests, the Labour Party candidates for the upcoming parliamentary elections, namely the Labour candidate for Enfield, Southgate, Bambos, Charalambous, the Labour candidate for Enfield North, Ferial Clark, the Labour candidate for Haringey, Catherine West, the Labour candidate for Chipping Barnet, Emma Weissel, the Labour candidate for Welling, Hatfield, Rosie Newbegin, and the Labour candidate for Chingford and Woodford Green, Faisa Shaheen. Hi. Welcome. Furthermore, we would like to welcome all councillors representing different local authorities, the representatives of all the various Cypriot community associations here in the UK, and especially the Cypriot umbrella organisation, the Federation in the UK and its president, Christos Karaolis. We would specifically like to thank the leader of Her Majesty's Opposition and leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, who unfortunately couldn't make it tonight, and who has always been a firm supporter of our cause. Jeremy Corbyn is sending his sincere apologies. The Labour Friends of Cyprus campaigns for the reinstatement of human rights in the Turkish-occupied northern part of the island, the end of the military occupation by Turkish troops, and the right of return for the refugees, the legitimate inhabitants, to their occupied land in conditions of peace and security under the legitimate government of the Republic of Cyprus. We are delighted to acknowledge the strong reassurances that the leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, has given on committing, once he wins the elections and becomes our new Prime Minister, to strive to uphold Britain's 1960 responsibilities on Cyprus. Britain was and still is one of Cyprus' guarantor powers for maintaining its independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity intact, a legal obligation that unfortunately Britain never fulfilled. We are also delighted that today's Labour Party, as a whole, is firmly supporting our position on a united Cyprus without the presence of Turkish or other troops in the island, and without the guarantees by other countries. An independent, sovereign, single state of the Republic of Cyprus without refugees and illegal settlers. Our thoughts, at the same time, go to our compatriots, the Turkish Cypriot population, who has also suffered tremendously from the division of Cyprus. The large influx of foreign settlers coming from the mainland Turkey, force the Turkish Cypriots to become a minority within their own community. The only way out for thousands of them was to leave Cyprus and emigrate abroad. A just solution to the Cyprus problem would be to create the conditions necessary for the Turkish Cypriots to also live in security and peace without any interference and control by the Turkish state, where they may feel free to plan and envision a better future for themselves and their children, as Cypriots and nothing else. The Labour Party, Friends of Cyprus, was formed in order to create close bonds between the Labour MPs and the Cypriots living in the UK. In its great majority, both the Greek and Turkish Cypriot community in the UK are already offering every possible assistance to Labour Party candidates in the upcoming general elections and campaign on their behalf. The Labour Party is a party of the working class, fighting a battle against the establishment of the middle classes, of big business organizations and the large corporations, who are all very well aware that there are huge financial interests and support of this current government to maintain the status quo are now in very real danger of being wiped out under a new Labour government. It is very well known that the establishment's biggest weapon is its monopolization and use of mainstream media. They may count on their side consistently receiving support from the majority of the national press, radio and TV channels to generate propaganda and spreading fake news against the Labour Party and especially its leader, Jeremy Corbyn. Whereas the Conservatives are the party that happily sells arms worth billions of pounds to barbaric regimes around the world, contributing to war, death, and refugees, the Labour Party is proposing to embark into a new internationalism promoting human rights, international law, and prioritizing conflict prevention and peace, encouraging at the same time climate change diplomacy. We would vote for the party that we trust most, which is the Labour Party, on security and policing. In its manifesto, the Labour Party is to employ an additional 21,000 policemen in our streets to help combat crime, which unfortunately has risen to record high levels, up 80% in the last 5 years. The Labour Party will specifically address the failure of the Conservatives to take effective measures against a growing problem of extreme and violent radicalization. We know that the Conservatives have created a constant national security risk for the last few years, mostly due to their involvement in other countries' domestic affairs, and bearing the responsibility for thousands of deaths and countless numbers of refugees from the Middle East flowing into Europe. It is worth noting that among the legitimate refugees in genuine need of our aid and assistance are also many well-documented cases of previous members of European Union designated terrorist groups slipping through the security net, masquerading as peaceful refugees, and then subsequently being prosecuted by the very European Union states that they found safe haven in. The Labour Party will reverse this reckless policy and concentrate on issues such as defence, border control, and strengthening national security. The Labour Party will put conflict resolution and human rights at the heart of its foreign policy, through United Nations, ending the support for aggressive foreign interventionist wars propped up through arms sales. Instead of adopting these short-sighted strategies, the Labour Party would support policies that are guided by the values of peace, universal rights, and international law. The Labour Party, contrary to the Conservatives, who are doing very little for poor and underprivileged people of our society, targets to eliminate poverty and inequality and increase the quality of life of the sick and the elderly. The lowest possible hourly wage rate will go up to £10 per hour. The scrapping of the universal credit, the commitment for an increase in carers' allowances, reduction in the state pension age, an increase in maternity and paternity pay, and reduction of the average working week are some of the measures that will be taken. The Labour programme also emphasises the commitment of a possible Jeremy Corbyn government to heavily investing in our failing NHS, social services, in our schools and housing, providing free university education, which should be a right and not a privilege, as well as funding heavily in improving childcare services and facilities, elementary and higher education. The Labour Party would protect and dismiss the closures of hospitals in favour of private medical care. It is a party that will stop privatisations and instead promote nationalisations and government control of industries such as the railway, the postal service, water and energy, for the good of the people and contrary to the exploitation of the public by the private sector monopolies. Labour is a party that would invest in infrastructure and job creation, helping to reduce unemployment and allow our youngsters to look forward for a bright future with jobs and careers. The plan is to create 1 million extra jobs. The Labour Party would resist a hard exit from the European Union and instead would fight and prioritise jobs and workers' rights, guaranteeing at the same time the rights of European Union nationals in the UK and to those UK citizens living in European Union countries. It is a party that would place every possible effort in retaining the benefits of the single market and the customs union, and not the party that will give up every single right that Britain gained from the European Union membership. On the 12th of December, we have the unique opportunity to vote for our Labour Party candidates who would fight for the rights of British people, the many and not the few, and the party that would try to bring world peace and not encourage wars. We therefore urge the Cypriot community not to abstain from participating in these elections, but instead to vote for the Labour Party and specifically our guests tonight. And these are the Labour candidate for Enfield, Southgate, Bambos, Charalambous, the Labour candidate for Enfield North, Ferial Clark, the Labour candidate for Haringey, Catherine West, the Labour candidate for Chipping Barnet, Emma Weissel, the Labour candidate for Welling Hatfield, Rosie Newbigin, and the Labour candidate for Chingford and Woodford Green, Faisa Shaheen. Thank you very much. I now propose, before we go to the candidates, a quick message from George, and then we'll go to the candidates.
All the candidates that are here and all of you that are here today. I'm reading from the headlines. Rail fares to rise 2.7% in January. Headlines, BBC News. Energy supply rent power to axe 4,500 jobs. UK has particularly extreme form of capitalism. terrorist attack, London Bridge. 1,000 Tata jobs at risk in Wales. UK shops are closing down. You can see the high streets. TSB branch closures revealed. UK housing is broken. 1 in 8 nursing posts is vacant. Doctor. Evidence of NHS will be up for sale. Jeremy Corbyn was waving. Poor GCSE passes for 1 in 8 teens. Parents panicking over sudden nursery closures. Climate is passing key tipping points, and the list goes on and on and on. Can anyone fix it? Sorry.
It's working.
Yes. Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. Jeremy Corbyn should be the Prime Minister of this country. But in order to get Jeremy Corbyn Prime Minister, first we have to get all these people elected.
True.
Because what they do, they will go back in the parliament and they will raise their hands and make Prime Minister Jeremy Corbyn. So what we have to do is just go and vote. Go and see our neighbors, go and see our colleagues, go and see our friends, and just go and vote. This is all we have to do. This is my message, and good luck to everybody. Thank you very much. I think all the candidates will say.
And to say how lovely it is to have everybody here in Wood Green, which of course is the heart of the Cypriot community, and especially to welcome Rosie and Pfizer, perhaps the first time at the Cypriot Centre, possibly. Whereas Emma and Ferial both know the centre very well from their days of being active in Labour politics here in North London. Not so long ago, we held a very important meeting here with John McDonnell as well, where he went through a number of policy areas about 12 months ago, and that was a very well-attended event. And you're quite right to point out the exciting future ahead for Labour, and I thought, as you've focused mainly on the domestic policy, Vasilis, I thought I would just mention a couple of things that Fabian Hamilton, who is our Shadow Minister for Peace, who works on Cyprus, has asked me to mention this evening. And while I'm getting my notes up, also just to mention how sad it is to hear about the passing of the Archbishop, because he's so often at community events. So it's really a pity that he's not with us any longer, but I know that tomorrow is going to be a wonderful day, not just of mourning, but also of celebrating a life well lived, and somebody who was always at even the most, petite meetings of people. He was always there and part of the grassroots in this community. So I do hope that those of you who are organising tomorrow and organising all the food and everything, and we know we've got friends here who do that, he'll be very much in our thoughts and our prayers. Now, Fabian Hamilton, who is the Shadow Minister for Peace and Disarmament and who is on the front bench, has asked me just to mention some of the work that he's been working on. He and colleagues from Parliament have visited Cyprus in the last 12 months, and they're very much supporting moves towards peace there. And also looking towards ending the occupation and working for the reunification of Cyprus. The solution to the Cyprus issue must, of course, be in line with the relevant United Nations Security Council resolutions and high-level agreements. And indeed, the European Union, of course, has in recent years played a key role. And we strongly support the moves that the European Union has taken in recent years around the economic zone and some of the questions there in terms of the incursion of Turkish interests in and around Cyprus. And as you all know, you've got our support in Parliament to continue to raise this in Foreign Office questions, in international debates, and to continue to have that on the agenda. Obviously, also, we support the bizonal bicommunal federation and welcome the recent efforts of the President and the Turkish Cypriot leader, Mr. Akinci, to restart negotiations towards a solution. We were biting our fingernails in Crans-Montana a couple of years ago when we thought there was going to be a solution. Unfortunately, that dropped down the agenda, but we mustn't lose hope. We must continue to move towards justice for refugees, and in particular the question around the troops, which Vasilis mentioned in his introduction. There's no need for the Turkish troops to be any longer in Cyprus, and also to mention that refugees should have the right to reclaim property and to have that issue resolved in advance of a solution. Very difficult to get things 100% right when the injustices occurred in 1974. However, we must work as closely as we can to get those issues resolved before a final resolution. And finally, on missing persons, all governments must fully cooperate to solve the missing persons issue and bring closure to the families who have been so badly affected. So, despite our massive debates about Brexit, what is very clear is that we will continue to work with the European Union to put the requisite pressure on Turkey to continue the talks and to bring people to the table so that we don't lose the momentum and the sense of energy which we had earlier, 18 months to 2 years ago. So, as voters both on the domestic agenda, which Vasilis has set out as though he was a candidate himself, and of course on the questions, the burning questions for Cyprus, you know that you have our support, you know you have Jeremy's support, you know you have Emily Thornberry's support, Fabian Hamilton's support, and let's hope that on the 13th of December, Jeremy goes into number 10 so that we can really get working, not just on the issues in Cyprus around justice and getting that peace settlement finally resolved, but also justice for our people as well, for social justice, for peace at the heart of our foreign policy, and to have, once again, equality here in the UK. Efkaristo for coming, and thank you very much.
Thank you, candidate for Harringay. Would you...
Thank you very much, Vasilis, for inviting me here today, and thank you all for being here tonight. It's absolutely great pleasure to be here as a candidate, because previously I've been here as a friend of Labour Friends of Cyprus, or as a friend of Cypriot people, and have come here for social events. So it's delightful to be here with you tonight. Vasilis did cover quite a lot of the issues that face us at this election. And Jeremy has said on many occasions, and we continue to say it, this election will decide the future of this country for generations to come. It is not like any other election. It's a very, very significant election, because it means putting end to 10 years of austerity, 10 years of cuts that have changed the fabric of our society. I've been in local government. I've been a councillor for the past 14 years, but in cabinet, I'm responsible for health and social care in London Borough of Hackney, and I've seen the services cut and cut and cut again. Local authorities have lost 60 pence in every pound. And we talk about Tories wanting to privatise NHS. They've already started. They've already started privatising sections of the NHS, whether it's introducing GP at hand to slowly shut down our GPs, whether it's privatising pathology laboratories, or whether it's privatising the scan and MRI facilities. So they've already started, and they're not shy about it. They've openly welcomed it. So they have already started, and they will continue it, and they will sell our NHS to the Americans, beyond the no doubt about that. On education, I was outside schools today, giving out leaflets to parents. The schools in the CLP I'm hoping to get elected have lost £19 million. That's 623 teachers that could be teaching our kids. That could be teachers' assistants that could be supporting our children that are finding it difficult in their classes. We've had cuts to special education needs budgets, so our disabled children are not getting the support they need in schools and at home. I can go on, friends, about the cuts that the Tories have made to the services that we all rely on. So this is an opportunity to put an end to austerity on all of those. But when you talk to the Tories, they say austerity was needed. They have money to give tax cuts to the likes of Amazon. They have money to give tax cuts to the corporations. They don't have money when it comes to NHS, when it comes to our local services, when it comes to our children's education. So we've never needed the Labour government more than we do at the moment. And I'll pass it on to my colleagues, but just on the Cyprus issue, I talked to my Cypriot residents in Enfield North, and I'm Kurdish from Turkey myself, so I've lived in diaspora for many years. I came here as a refugee child, so I've lived amongst Cypriots all my life, and I know that both the Turkish Cypriots and the Greek Cypriots are desperate for the reunification of their island. But we need to ensure that the priority must be that the hostilities, we cease hostilities, that continue to both sides to cease hostilities. But also, we need to ensure that we are putting in place confidence-building measures so that the talks about the reunification could start as soon as possible. I will, if I am lucky enough to be elected in Enfield North, will work with Catherine, will work with Emily to ensure that I am providing the support to the Cypriot community on this issue. So you will have a friend in me if I am elected to Parliament. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you, Vasily. Thank you for having me tonight. As Catherine says, I've been here many times, often in support of Catherine when I was her constituency party secretary, and we've held many very important Labour Party meetings in this building and with the community. So it's lovely to be able to be here and address you today. I stood last time for Parliament in 2017, also in Chipping Barnet. So I've spent a number of years now in Chipping Barnet, meeting with the community, getting to experience this wonderful community in a way that I never have before, and it's been absolutely wonderful and endearing to be so accepted and to learn so much from such a vibrant community in my constituency that I hope to represent. But the biggest concern I've heard from the community in Chipping Barnet is their fear over what Brexit will mean for the community and the insecurity of 3.5 years of debate and deadlock and never having an answer on EU nationals' rights, never having an answer on what Brexit will look like, and never having an answer on what this government plans for the community going forward. I'm standing against one of, I think, the worst Brexiteers that you will see, which is Theresa Villiers, who backs a no-deal Brexit, despite the community that she has in her constituency. And therefore, I'm right at the other end of the scale of being so hugely in favour that we remain, so that we can give people and the community the stability that they so desire after so many years of uncertainty. And that's part of the reason I'm standing. I'm also standing because I come from a very proud Labour family and Labour background, and I'm a trade union lawyer, and I've seen the damage that 9.5 years of austerity have done to our public services and to our law and legal system, and the fact that so many people seeking justice are let down by our system, so many people seeking medical help are let down by our system because our system is broken and our system is left almost beyond repair, and that morale is so low in so many of our public services that we need to reinvigorate hope in our country. And what I worry most about in this election is that it is very much becoming hope versus fear, and that so many people are fearful of what will happen if the wrong result happens next Thursday. And so many people are fearful for their future if we have yet more austerity, if we have a no deal or a hard Brexit. And so many people are fearful, and that's why I think what inspires me tonight and what inspires me in the Labour Party is that no matter what, the Labour Party always stands for hope for communities, that there is something better and that we can build something better if we come together. So thank you very much for having me tonight. Thank you.
That was the candidate for Chipping Barnet, Emma Weishall. Now can I ask the Chingford and Woodford Green candidate, Faisa Shaheen, to say please.
Okay, all right, I have to sit. So the reason I'm so dressed up is that Hugh Grant just came to Chingford and Woodford Green. But yeah, I ran off as soon as it was done to be with you tonight because I grew up in Chingford and I know, and I grew up with Cypriots, with Argeros and Ozan, and you know, we in Shebnem, and my husband, Έκανε, a Turkish Cypriot, and your community and this community is so important to London, to this country, to where I grew up and to the community I want to stand for. And that is why I left Hugh Grant to be with you. I really did. And I want to thank the Cypriots that have given us so much, not just my husband, but you know, I feel sometimes that the Cypriots aren't really given enough time and energy in our political conversations, and we're not thinking enough about bringing out how much the Cypriots have contributed to the UK, and also what has happened in Cyprus, and what we do to support peace and to support the communities here that are worried about what's happened in Cyprus and the situation there. But it's not just about Cyprus. I know that for all of us here, we have been affected by the Conservatives' policies of the last 9 years. That in our communities, what the Cypriots talk to me about is the fact that their school and their kids are seeing huge cuts to their education. And they're worried about their kids getting in debt for going to university. You know, £60,000 of debt our young people are coming out with now. They're worried about Whipps Cross Hospital, which is our local hospital. Those are things that we have in common, that we all want to fight for. And the Labour Party offers us the opportunity to put right what has gone so wrong in the last 9 years. And the other big thing, of course, and this really upset me during the Brexit campaign, you'll remember those posters of like the Turkish people are coming, and the way in which immigrant communities were thrown under the bus in that discussion. And it has, you know, the way in which we've treated European nationals and the way in which we've allowed that immigrant scapegoating to be revved up in the last 10 years and potentially even longer is absolutely unacceptable. I am fighting Ian Duncan Smith. He has been our MP for 27 years. I grew up in that community. When I was born, Norman Tebbit was the MP. Yes, so it will be a big change for us in Chingford and Woodford Green, moving to Ian Duncan Smith, to myself. And I can promise you, those of you in this room that will get to vote for me, and to the community in Chingford and Woodford Green, that I will be the exact opposite to Ian Duncan Smith and the way in which he's driven Brexit, but more importantly and more damaging, I think, for people in this community and around the country, is what he did on welfare policies and the cuts made there. Every day, I'm getting messages from people that have been affected by these policies. And my mum was one of them. She had heart failure and she was reassessed for her benefits. It was cruel, it was unkind, and it was inhumane. And those are the policies and those are the values that have been driven through our system under this Conservative government and by architects of austerity like Ian Duncan Smith. So next Thursday, I cannot wait to beat him. I cannot wait. And I thank the Cypriot community for their support, and I just know we're going to do it together next week. Thank you.
Passing out to the Labour candidate for Welling, Hatfield, Rosie Newbegin. May I remind everybody that we have lots of Cypriots in that area the last few years. Potter's Bar and other areas around there. So please support this candidate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vasilis, and thank you very much for inviting me this evening. We have a wonderful, vibrant Cypriot community in Welwyn Hatfield, so it's an absolute pleasure to be here, and comradely greetings to you all. And I'm here to tell you some good news. Another world is possible, and we could be just 8 days away from it. Yes. We are 8 days away from the most radical, transformative, and yes, socialist Labour government, which will rebuild this country, because this country is absolutely broken. And certainly, I think this is the most important general election, certainly in my lifetime, and I've seen a few general elections now. But our country is absolutely and fundamentally broken to the core. And what could exemplify that more than the news yesterday that 6 people in this country own the same amount of wealth as 13 million people. The poorest 13 million. Or that 1% of the population owns the same amount of wealth as 80% of the population. Now, I think that's rotten to the core. That's corruption. That's capitalism run wild, and we are going to tackle that. We are going to create a society that works for the many, not just the pampered, elite, privileged few. Social justice will run through the heart of our programme of government. We will rebuild our glorious National Health Service, surely Labour's finest achievement, the country's greatest institution. And if anybody believes Boris Johnson and Donald Trump when they say the NHS is for sale, well, I don't, but Labour will rebuild that. We'll cherish it, we'll nurture it, we'll kick out the private contractors, and we'll run it for people, not for profits. And we will end the mass poverty that we have seen. 14 million people living in poverty today, in the 5th richest country in the world. That's an absolute outrage. And we are going to tackle that poverty. We're going to tackle the poverty of 4 million children, nearly 2 million pensioners. And this Christmas, 135 homeless children face Christmas in temporary accommodation, in bed and breakfast. You know, what kind of country are we living in? We've got to end that cruelty. So I really want to congratulate you for organising this fantastic event today, and just really reinforce what everybody said about Cyprus, because we know that a foreign policy under Jeremy Corbyn, who is, you know, an absolute internationalist and socialist, will be based on peace, justice and human rights. And the reunification of Cyprus as an independent island is absolutely front and centre of our foreign policy. So I just really want to say thank you very much for inviting me. Please come to Welwyn Hatfield and campaign for me, because the path to power, the path to government, the path to Downing Street, the path to a radical, transformative socialist government runs down the A1, round the M25, and right down to Downing Street. So join me in getting rid of Grant Shapps. He's the MP in Welwyn Hatfield, odious individual. He's just putting rail fares up by 2.7%, while we're proposing to cut them by 33%. So join me in getting rid of Grant Shapps, Theresa Villiers, Ian Duncan-Smith, the whole rotten lot of them, and we'll see you at Downing Street next Thursday for the Victory Party. Thank you.
I'll hold it here. And I've been able to speak up about Cyprus in Parliament. I've raised issues, but I've also met many people in the community. I've been to many dinner and dances where I've got to know you all even better. And I know that with my amazing colleagues here and the people who have had to leave, that we will have an even bigger voice in Parliament if you vote Labour. Now, Jeremy Corbyn has been a friend of Cyprus for many, many years. He was campaigning for peace in Cyprus since he got elected into Parliament. And the reason for that is You know, he was a councillor in Haringey before. He had many Cypriots in his area. He understands the issues. And he was actually talking about Cyprus and not getting much coverage anywhere outside the Cypriot press. But he still did it because he's passionate and he believes in Cyprus. And that's the sort of person that we need to get elected as our Prime Minister, to make sure that Cyprus, somebody who's in power, actually understands the issues of Cyprus and gives full support for it. Now, in order to win the election, we need as many people as possible to vote. We've got the election in 8 days' time, and it will be one of the biggest choices that we face. We've got Boris Johnson on one side with his lies and his deception and his pro-Brexit sort of views, and we've got Jeremy on the other side with a magnificent manifesto and a real offer for the people of the community. And we need it. We're crying out for this change, and we have been for a long time. And now we have a real chance to actually make a difference. Now, to do that, we need everybody to vote, everybody in this room, but also tell your friends, your family, tell everybody you know to go out and vote, because we have to vote. If people don't vote on that day, then we lose. And we need to make sure that no matter what the weather throws, the Tories come out no matter what, but we need to make sure our voters come out and vote and actually deliver for us, because we can only represent you in Parliament if you'll vote us in. And this is really, really important. There are some very marginal seats. We've got Chingford and Woodford, which is super marginal. You've heard what Ian Duncan Smith's views are. So, you know, odious views, and we need to make sure that he's got rid of. You've heard of Chipping Barnett. You've heard of Emma Weissel. So we need to keep the seats we have. We've heard about Welling and Hatfield. So we have some fantastic candidates who need us to get them into Parliament, because once we get them into Parliament, then we'll have a majority and we're well on the way to delivering a fabulous agenda for people. You have some amazing friends in Parliament, and I'm proud to be the chair of the vice chair of the all-party group on Cyprus. But we still need to get the message out there, because sometimes I feel like you know, people ask me loads about Cyprus, which I'm very flattered about, but I want them all to know so they don't have to ask me. So they understand and get to know about Cyprus themselves. And we can only do that by being a united community, making sure that, you know, you do hold your MPs, your candidates to account. You ask about Cyprus, you say, what are you doing about Cyprus? You raise the voice. I'll be there with you, as will Catherine, as will others, if you vote us through in Parliament. But we need to make sure that you all come out and vote. So thanks for the time. It's been a real honour to serve the community. And I will hopefully be able to carry on doing that after next Thursday. So thank you for your support.
Thank you very much. That was the Labour candidate for Enfield Southgate, Pambos Charalambous. Now I'll pass the microphone to Catherine West. She wants to say one or two more things.
But who have been wonderful advocates for Cyprus and for our communities in North London. Obviously, Joan Ryans has resigned, and obviously Ferriel, who you saw earlier, is going to be the new candidate. And we also had Alan Meal, who wasn't elected in 2017, but who was a fantastic advocate for Cyprus, despite not necessarily having lots of Cypriots in his own constituency. He just had a real heart for the area. He had been on trips, and as Bambos said, there's a few of us who love Cyprus and talk about it all the time, and he was one of them. And I do hope that this year we will win Mansfield back. And I know that he would be doing his bit right now to help our candidate in Mansfield, because it's extremely close. And there are lots of seats like that where we just need to flip them over into being red from blue. And Bambas, I'm sure you can remember more who have been, but I just wanted to put on record that we've had a number of, and of course Kate Ossamer, who's not with us tonight, but she's a great advocate as well for Cyprus, and David Lammy and Emily Thornbury. As you say, the A1, anyone who's on the A1 and going up. And also just to say that we will continue that work in Parliament. We will continue to have our annual event, which we have in July. You're all very welcome to come in, and it's a wonderful evening. And you know, it's really, of all the groups, all the different country groups that we have, I think we've probably got the best showing in terms of members of Parliament who attend, and people who ask questions, get involved, raise the issues. We don't just leave it to Bambos. And you might like to know that Bambos is my whip. And Pfizer, if you get on, he'll probably be your whip too. So he plays a very important role, and I'm very proud that somebody from our community is already on the first step, on the first ladder into being, into the ministerial stream. And you would all be aware that the outgoing Speaker of the House, John Bercow, always selected Bambos because he just loved pronouncing Bambos's name. Bambos, Sheralambos, he'd say. So I do hope that Lindsay Hoyle, who is the new Speaker and was recently elected with his lovely Lancashire burr, will also have great pleasure in pronouncing names like Bambos Sharalambos, Pfizer Shaheen, Ferial Clark, Emma Weisel, Rosie Newbigin, and many, many more. Yeah.
Hello. We will have a general election on the 12th of December this year. This is an opportunity to bring an end to 10 years of austerity. This is a once-in-a-generation election. This will decide the future of our young people for generations to come. If you value the investment into our NHS, if you want to protect the NHS, if you want to have more investment into education and put an end to a decade of cuts in education, if you want to end austerity and the cuts to local authorities, please use your vote on the 12th of December. Please vote Labour.
I'm Emma Weisel, the Labour Party candidate for Chipping Barnet in North London. I'm standing here today, very proud to be invited by Labour Friends of Cyprus to this wonderful event. Very proud last time I stood in 2017 against Teresa Villiers to sign the Federation's pledge for a united and peaceful Cyprus. As a passionate Remainer, I understand the concerns of many in the community about what Brexit will do to our relations with Europe and with Cyprus, and that's why I believe I'm the right person in Chipping Barnet to stand up for the community and the things that matter. Thank you very much.
I'm Rosie Newbigin. I'm the parliamentary candidate for Welwyn Hatfield. We have a wonderful Cypriot community in our constituency. I'm hoping that next Thursday, on the 12th of December, our communities will vote Labour for change, and vote to support a united, independent Cyprus.
So just to remind people, the election is on the 12th of December. Please make sure you vote. This election is going to be very, very important, and we must make sure that your voice is heard in Parliament in this election by voting for people you want to represent you in Parliament. So make sure you vote. It's very, very important, and the polls are open between 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. So I hope to see you out voting, and I look forward to meeting you on the doorstep.
Kalispera and good evening. It's lovely to be here in Wood Green at the Cypriot Centre and to remind you all to vote next Thursday from 7 a.m. in the morning to 10 p.m. at your usual polling station. Vote early and vote Labour for a fairer Britain. Thank you. Ευχαριστώ πολύ.